Okay, I think I'm today. Are we ready? Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to our February 25th Municipality of Tweed Council meeting. We always start with our land acknowledgement. The Municipality of Tweed recognizes that our work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories, including the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize and respect the history, languages, and cultures of the First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all Indigenous peoples whose presence continues to enrich our communities. Miigwech. Please join us now on the Sing of Old Canada. Old Canada, our home land. With glowing hearts, we sing the gods, but you are strong and free. Come on, fall in line, you Canada, we stand on your forward. Glorious and free. We stand on God for thee. Oh, we stand on God for thee. Thank you. Okay. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the approval of our agenda for the meeting of February 25th? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demarche. Thank you, Councillor Palmatier. Be it resolved that the agenda for the February 25th, 2025 regular council meeting be approved as presented. All in favor? Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Now, Councillor Fleiler, if you need to inject, you say something because I'm not necessarily watching the screen, okay? And I don't want to miss you.
Okay. Hey, Your Worship, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'll just mute myself until I need to speak then.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And flag your hands or whatever, okay?
Okay.
Okay. No disclosure of pecuniary interest. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes from the February 11th, 2025 regular council meeting, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Valiquette. Thank you, Councillor Palmatier. Any questions on said minutes? Seeing none, be it resolved that the minutes of the February 11th, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. All in favor? Thank you. On to my mayor's remarks. Congratulations to Tweed's Mark Bear for his outstanding performance in the Alpine event at the Invictus Games, where he proudly earned a bronze medal, an incredible achievement. A heartfelt thank you to the Tweed Agriculture Society for organizing our winter carnival. Despite the challenges posed by Mother Nature, you delivered an amazing event for our community. On February 11th, following our council meeting, I visited my father at the Belleville General Hospital, only to learn of his passing. My father was an extraordinary man who instilled in his children the drive to make a difference. A proud Canadian, his love for his country is forever engraved on his tombstone, alongside his deep appreciation for his Italian heritage. Dad worked at Nortel for 37 years, forming lifelong friendships and advocating tirelessly for his coworkers as a dedicated union representative. His unwavering Catholic faith guided him throughout his life, and he was a fierce advocate for those in crisis, including the homeless and refugees. He played a pivotal role in supporting Muslim refugees hosted at CFB Trenton during the Bosnia-Herzegovina conflict. Now he is reunited with my mother, Leona Brennan Di Genova, his wife of 60 years and friend for 70. I sincerely thank Deputy Mayor Demarche and Councillors Fleiler and Valiquette for traveling to Belleville to offer their support and condolences. On February 14th, I spoke with Lauren Brooker about our 15% tax increase and the lack of support from the Ontario government. The link to that interview is in my mayor's remarks. On the 16th, I joined fellow Kiwanians for our annual pancake breakfast and bake sale. On the 18th, I attended the Hastings County Financial Property and Personnel Committee meeting. The following day, I participated in a Quinty Health Joint Foundation meeting. On the 20th, I was interviewed by Nav Nabwa on CBC Ontario Morning, where I discussed the challenges faced by rural municipalities and the lack of attention from the province, despite their strong electoral support in our riding and their need to become a swing riding. Link to that interview is also in my mayor's comments. This afternoon, we met with the CAO recruiter to finalize position requirements for our new CAO. I encourage, in fact, I implore everyone to get out and vote. This unnecessary election takes place on Thursday, February 27th. I've already cast my vote along with many others in our municipality. It is important that you make sure that your voice is heard. In the 2020 provincial election, only 44% of eligible Ontario voters cast a ballot. The Conservative Party won a majority with 76 cents and 40.5% of the vote. However, when you break it down, that 40.5% of the 44% means just 17.8% of eligible voters determined the outcome. Despite this, Premier Ford claimed a resounding mandate, and it was anything but. Did you know that in other provinces, the government covers and manages social housing, shelter services, childcare, EMS services, including paramedics and ambulances, homelessness services? Also, Ontario has the lowest per capita program spending in Canada, pushing costs onto municipalities and driving up property taxes. The province has had the lowest per student funding for post-secondary education at just 44 cents for every dollar spent elsewhere in Canada. In Ontario, tuition fees have been frozen since 2018 and were reduced by a further 10% in 2019, bringing them back to 2015 levels. Colleges and universities are now cutting programs and laying off staff. The impact on Loyalist College is severe, bordering on catastrophic. Healthcare funding is also at an all-time low. According to Dr. Dominic Nowak, president of the Ontario Medical Association, 2.5 million Ontarians currently lack a family doctor. Without urgent action, that number could rise to 4.4 million within a year. When higher levels of government cut taxes and programs, municipalities are left to pick up the tab. We have no one to pass the costs on to but you, the taxpayer. If you care about your municipality's future, if you want your provincial tax dollars reinvested in your community, if you want to avoid critical infrastructure failure when it comes to rural roads and bridges, if you want to ensure that every child has food in their belly, if you want affordable housing that spans all income groups, if you want to ensure that the homeless are respected and cared for, if you want your family to have a doctor, if you want a nursing home bed for a family member within a 50-kilometer drive where you live, if you want a hospital that can tend to your health needs in moments of crisis, then you might want to consider voting and voting for change. Your future, the future of your family and friends, and the future of your municipality lies in your hands. Change only happens when we make our voices heard. Your council is committed to securing a sound financial future for our municipality, but we cannot do it alone. The federal and provincial governments must recognize that small, rural, and northern Ontario are just as vital to this province's prosperity as large urban centers. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and no, it is not a freight train, but the tunnel is long, and we need your support to reach the other side. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Could I have a mover and a seconder to table Ontario Regulation 588/17 Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demarche. Thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you, Kelly. And thank you very much for pulling all this together. What did Jimmy?
Well, you only got on.
But Jim probably did. Was this mailed to Jim? Do you know where? Oh, sorry, Jim. This is just something we're getting now. Oh, it's on the screen. Okay, sorry. Okay, phew. Okay,
Just wanted to give you a paper copy. in
okay,
case
thank you. Make
had
notes.
questions or wanted to make notes.
Yeah.
Going
Thank you very
along.
much.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, just want to start this by saying this is the beginning of a discussion, not the end. And we're going to be talking about some high level concepts. It's important to understand that Regulation 588-17 is a provincial initiative. And to date, we've spent about $90,000 in background studies on top of the normal studies that we do to get ready for this and to have some numbers for you. So the purpose of this is primarily to ensure that municipalities know how much they have in capital assets, the condition of those assets, and how much they need to be spending over the next 10, 20, 30 years. So the regulation speaks to first a 10-year window, which is primarily what we're going to focus on tonight, but also a 30-year window that we'll need to be looking at. I'd also caution that this is the numbers in these reports I have rounded. And I think as we go through them, it'll become pretty obvious whether we're talking about 13.56213 million or whether we're talking about 13.5 million, I think is irrelevant at this point. And for the purposes of just getting to the bottom line, I've rounded the numbers based upon the Greenview report from last year that council received. So these numbers will need to be updated as we get more reports. The regulation calls for annual reviews, so it'll be part of your annual budgeting process.
Now, if I may, when you say annual review, you mean that we have to undertake this study every year at a cost?
I think there's going to be larger municipalities going to take that tact. I think there's probably, for example, our OSEM report on bridges has to be done every 2 years. There's no point in doing it in the in-between year.
Okay.
The calculation can be an inflationary factor.
Okay.
There may be points in time where you're looking at a major infrastructure investment that you want to do extra work. For example, if you wanted to consolidate, we have 40 buildings. If you want to consolidate buildings, obviously you're going to need to do some extra work. But I think for day to day through most of the 10 years, it'll be the routine updates on our roads needs study, our OSEM building condition reports, and those will be built into our budgeting process.
Okay, thank you.
The report from last month laid out a table of the requirements, and I've highlighted in red where we are tonight. And basically, we're at the point of discussion required around the level of public consultation. We do have to have a public consultation process. It's not laid out in the regulation that you need to have 3 public meetings and 2 online surveys or anything like that. So this is a council decision as to how much public consultation you want to have. Having said that, the Greenview report has been online for just over a year. There was considerable discussion when that report was before council. So right now we're just at the point where we're looking at what the plans are going forward. And finally, within that section, review of the financial position and potential tax impacts. So as you can see, down through point 8, there are a number of steps after this, but tonight we're going to be talking, primarily about what the tax impacts are of the kinds of numbers that we need to look at. Pardon me. So at this point, I think it's important to talk about, what we are doing at this stage and what we aren't doing at this stage. This is a financial model, and any financial model is an assumption times a guess divided by an estimate. It's a tool we can use, and as we know numbers, we can plug them into the model and see the impacts. But this isn't like your annual budget process. This is a high level financial model looking at the next 10 years. And we all know that, whether it's politics or further downloading or the construction of a new arena, whatever it is, those things aren't built into the model until we know what they are. So it is a financial plan for the next 10-year time horizon, recognizing that we need to be flexible in how we do that and adjust as new information becomes available. And it is just a starting point for discussion. We aren't at the end of the process. There are a number of steps after this. And in fact, I suspect when we get to the end of tonight, we're going to have more questions than we've got answers. So it isn't about selecting the next road segment to do or which bridge to do. The Greenview report was very high level. It gave us numbers to look at, and that's what we're looking at. So this isn't about, are we going to do Bridge A versus Bridge B? Are we going to replace the arena or not replace the arena? Those are questions that'll fall out of the debate, but they aren't for tonight's purposes. We're going to talk about tax rates for the next 10 years, but we are not setting the tax rate. The next term of council, they will set their tax rates. What we're doing is giving guidelines and giving council the information to make informed decisions about the tax rate and the impact on your capital. And finally, as I said, this isn't the end of the process. This is basically the beginning of the process, keeping in mind that the regulation speaks to a deadline of July the 1st. So I put 10 key assumptions down. And again, this was just me working through the Greenview report, looking at other municipalities and where they are, and what I know about the municipality of Tweed. So we're going to focus on the next 10 years, but we need to keep an eye on the next 30. So, well, tonight we're going to be talking about, the first 10 years of this. The regulation does talk about having a 30-year view. And that 30-year view is pretty reasonable, given that, the lifespan of most buildings is going to be 25 to 30 years before a major renovation is required. Bridges are 50 years, and an asphalt road would be 15 to 20, depending on the base level. So it encompasses most of the things that we will do if you take a 30-year window. Compromises will be necessary, and we will have to rationalize our assets. There's no way around that. When we get into the numbers are just way too big for the municipality of Tweed to handle. Operations and capital are two separate but interrelated subjects. For example, investments in new energy efficient building will decrease operating costs. And one of the things that we need to look at as under this regulation is a change in procurement. We'll talk about total cost of ownership in another slide or two. So while they're two separate items and we tend to deal with them, municipalities as a capital budget and a operating budget, the two are linked. Neglected capital items will become more costly to operate and to maintain. So you make a decision not to invest in a building, it's going to become more costly on the operating side. And finally, well-maintained assets will last longer. So we talk about them as separate entities, but they're essentially two sides of the same coin. I think it's pretty clear, particularly over the last couple of years, that we cannot rely on senior level funding for grants as part of our funding process. So a lot of this is built upon not receiving any grants. Having said that, over a 10 or a 30-year lifespan, likely there is going to be some grants. And I did make some high-level assumptions in the financial model. Capital costs increase faster than your basic household inflation. Unfortunately, we do a lot of things that are petroleum-based, energy-based. Petroleum is one of the main ingredients of asphalt, for example, but we drive around trucks, we operate expensive buildings. There is no arena in the world that is truly energy efficient. We are in the business of things that inflation is higher than your household inflation. And growth can be our friends, but bad growth can be our enemies. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think every municipality is chasing growth, but I think it's going to take a view of what is good growth. The example I'll give you is 30 homes on existing services is good growth. 30 homes where you have to build 4 kilometers of road and provide new services is probably a losing proposition. So smart growth, and this will be reflected in official plans and zoning bylaws, will pay dividends down the road. The number of households or properties per kilometer make something more efficient.
However, if you look at good growth from the extent where a developer is developing a neighborhood where there are no services, okay, they incur the cost of that. We don't. That is good growth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I gave two extremes. There's
Okay.
lots in between. Debt will be part of the solution, but it has its limits. We're currently at 42% of our repayment limits. So obviously
You say 42 or 32?
42.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously we're going to have to make some difficult decisions with respect to debt. I think since November the 5th, it's become even clearer that global instability is not predictable. We don't know what the next couple of years are going to bring in terms of tariffs and trade and all kinds of things. And just like a lot of the things that we do are energy and petroleum based, a lot of things that we do are involve procurement through the United States as well. And we like to say in financial modeling that the model will always be wrong, but it's the foundation for adapting to change. I do not know what's going to happen in year 8 of the model, but I can do a straight line projection of what 3% looks like. And finally, the choice is often between 2 or more bad options. We are not in a position as a municipality of Tweed, and I dare say the vast majority of the 444 municipalities in Ontario are going to be in exactly the same position. We are not going to be able to afford the infrastructure we currently operate. So we're going to be making some very difficult decisions as a council moving forward. And I think that's the overwhelming takeaway that I have, having worked on this for about a month now to put together some of the models we'll see. The Greenview report and part of the regulation is to make estimates of service levels. Currently, the 2 areas of most concern are bridges and culverts. And to some extent, wastewater and water, just in that we need to be providing the highest level service. And for example, we need to be looking at our water treatment plant, and we're looking at about $750,000 to $1 million worth of upgrades just to bring us into this century in terms of some of the technology in the water treatment plant. Having said that, in buildings and facilities, we have 40 buildings identified in the Greenview report. Obviously, we're going to need to make some rational decisions on those, and we'll talk about each one of those categories and what some of the options are available to council, but continuing to have 40 buildings is probably not something that we're going to be able to do. The good news is that the condition of our roads are in pretty good shape, and that's our highest service level. But what the regulation requires you to do is to say, if you cannot meet your funding requirements, which I'm here to tell you, you cannot meet your funding requirements, are there areas where you are willing as a council, as a community, to decrease the service level? And roads is probably the one area that we could look at decreasing the service level, and we'll talk about some of the ways.
I think what's interesting in this process and hearing what we're discussing here is we are put into a position where we have to determine what services we're going to cut, only because, again, upper levels of government have not come to the table to help us through this process. So again, we end up being the bad guy.
The one that's probably the most worrisome, and the mayor has been quite vocal about this, is bridge and culverts. And I don't know that there's a good answer to that, but we'll walk through some of the options. So I took the Greenview report, and this is table 3 out of the report, and these are the actual numbers, not my rounded numbers, but when we get to the modeling, we'll be dealing with rounded numbers. Essentially, water supply, wastewater, and solid waste are funded through user fees. And as council goes through user fee studies, which are mandated under the act for water supply, and wastewater gets tacked in there. And of course, as we look at solid waste, those fees are probably going to need to be adjusted. You remove those, and what you have is 135 million over 10 years required to be property tax supported. So that is the 165 minus water supply, wastewater, and solid waste. So the number we're looking at for tax purposes is 135 million divided by 10 years, $13.5 million per year is what would be required to essentially maintain the status quo. Our current tax levy is 6.26 million. So essentially, we would need to triple the current tax levy just to maintain our services. And to be clear, I'm not recommending that. I don't think that there's any way that we could do that.
I think what you're doing is you're putting it into perspective of what,
Yes.
that's right.
And that's what the regulation requires us to do. So I'd like to think of it as a balancing act. So item number one, how much money do we require? So the Greenview reports is 135 over 10 million or 13.5 million per year. We're ignoring for a moment inflation because this model needs to be updated each year. So that number, and I would suggest that we use the construction inflation index each year to up those, or where we have an OSIM report, those numbers.
If I just may, just to speak to what you're saying right now, prior to this, it was $11.1 million. With that huge inflation that we went through, it decreased to 13.5, just speaking to, you don't know what the future holds.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry, go.
So the construction inflation index related to consumer price index?
So the consumer price index includes bread, fruit, gasoline.
So how much would that be guesstimated?
Generally 0.75% to 1% more than your household consumer price index.
I just took a session with Jim Pine and Tony.
Oh, those guys don't know it.
They don't know anything, and they were talking about the latest one is 9%.
9%. Yeah.
9% for the very index that you're talking about. And they said that's the one we should be looking
Yeah.
at.
Point number two is what can we afford? So we know how much we need to spend. What can we afford? Question number three is what service level would we provide? And question number four is what compromises are we prepared to make? That in essence, what regulation 577, 588, 17 requires us to do. So a starting point for discussions, as I mentioned, we're going to need to look at our procurement process. And I know that we redid our procurement bylaw. This will require another review of the procurement bylaw. And I expect that the Hastings County treasurers will be working on, how do you account for total cost of ownership? So easy example, 10-year snowplow or snowplow with a 10-year life expectancy. What are the annual maintenance costs? What are the fuel costs? So the price on day one isn't the price that council will be considering. It's the price of the total cost of ownership. So it's going to be a different way of looking at things, and a snowplow is an easy one. A building can be far more complex. Energy use and fuel use will be part of that. Ease of maintenance and availability of parts, standardization. Getting to the point where we have the same types of vehicles, or where we have the similar motors and compressors, makes for maintenance a lot easier maintenance and operations and procurement. Continuous improvement models, recognizing standards such as ISO, joint procurement models such as Canoe, which we use a fair bit, regional buying. So for example, Public Works Manager Ryan has been working with Center Hastings, Madoc, on joint procurement for road resurfacing. So, that regional procurement and exercising higher buying power will be important. Cooperative tendering, geographic challenges to be overcome. So there's going to be less vendor choice. For example, in fire trucks, we used to have 4 or 5 different companies. We're now down to 2. Ambulances, we used to have 4 different options. We're now down to 1. It's the competition in the marketplace is narrowing, which gives the seller an advantage. Coordinating and bundling of procurement, legislative framework. So for example, the Discriminatory Business Practices Act says that we can't favor a local vendor. But when you look at the total cost of ownership, having a local vendor may make sense. So how does that get rationalized? And that's going to be something that AMO is going to have to work with the province on in terms of rationalizing how that behaves. We are also part of a number of international trade agreements that will make this even more complicated. So suffice it to say that procurement over the next 3 to 5 years is going to look very different as a result of this regulation and the changes that are going to be required. I mentioned asset management and growth, but essentially growth helps you spread the costs, particularly where that growth is on existing services or where the services are paid for by the developer. Development charges are also part of this equation and will help us afford not the purchase of, but any extra supply or surplus needed to service growth. So it also means things like consolidation and disposal of assets are going to be required. So for example, consolidation of public works assets or consolidation of municipal office, arena, community space. So we may say, for example, that we're looking at year 11 of the 10-year plan where we'll have a municipal complex. And at that point, we will have phased out the following 7 buildings. So that can be a guideline for the community, and the municipality can save towards that eventuality. More compact urban standards to maximize service potential is obviously important, and embracing new technologies, for example, the surface treatment that we're looking at for the Flinton Road. So this is at a very high level. So we're looking at roads at $24 million over the.
Can I go back to one comment?
Sure.
Just when you mentioned more compact urban standards to maximize serving potential, that would be like in relation to our zoning bylaws that we just changed, increasing urban densification, smaller homes, smaller lots, that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
So we're moving in that right direction.
We're moving in the right direction
Okay,
for
thank
sure.
you.
Yeah. So roads to 24 million over the 10-year lifespan. So we should be spending 2.4 million. But setting it up as a bit of a hierarchy, replace like for like, a higher standard with lower maintenance costs, a lower standard. So for example, we may take a high flow road and pulverize it, return it to gravel. New technology such as Everlife, close the road, sell to a private owner. So for each category, we're going to set up essentially a checkbox for future councils to say, okay, when we're looking at Pender Street, here are the 5 options that we need to look through and settle on a decision. Bridges and culverts, 64 million, so $6.4 million per year. Again, replace like for like, reduce the load limit, for example, reduce the load limit to 3 million. 3 million tons is a lot of tons to 3 tons, and make the commitment that when the bridge gets condemned, the bridge gets condemned and we're going to close it. Other solutions like box culvert, modular bridges, prefabs, those are going to have to be required to look at. And reduce lane widths, so 2-lane bridges becoming 1-lane bridges, or eliminate the bridge. Stormwater management, again, replace like for like, improve detention. So for example, rooftop detention, parking lot detention, so that the runoff isn't as severe, therefore not needing as large pipes. And stormwater management ponds, reduce runoff, naturalized channelization, tree planting, green surfacing, or investing in new technology. There's a number of storm scepter products that are coming on the market that involve a lot of detention within the pipe upstream that may make sense in certain areas when we're doing.
So if I may, so say somebody comes forward with a new subdivision plan, should we be looking at them building into the subdivision plan some of this stuff to reduce the stress and strain on our other existing services?
Yeah, and we were just meeting with a potential subdivision and a lot of things on the site plan checklist talk to these items.
Okay.
Probably going to need to be more specific as we move forward. In terms of, runoff coefficients. I'll be working with the Conservation Authority and probably other planning teams within the county.
Okay.
Building and facilities, 38 million. So basically 40 buildings, about 3.8 million per year. We should be either saving or investing. Again, replace like for like, ride it out to the end of the life than decommission. So you may take, a building and say the maximum we'll invest in any given year is $5,000 or $50,000, whatever it is. And when we reach that point, we will decommission the building. And you make that, public pronouncement and user groups and the community is aware of the decisions you're making. Consolidation. So, one building serving the same purpose as 7 or 8 other buildings, more energy efficient, built to a higher standard, probably leads platinum, and getting a better bang for the buck, recognizing that, that's hugely expensive. You're probably for an arena / municipal complex. I don't know if anybody's been to the one in North Grenville, lovely complex. It's the library, theater, hockey rink. I know from experience taking my daughter there, they used to have the coldest rink in Eastern Ontario, and now they have one of the warmest. So, but that is very expensive and it's going to require a lot of planning. Invest in energy efficiency. Again, the relationship between capital and operating costs. Demolition and sell as is. There might be some buildings where it's more valuable to sell the vacant land and the municipality pays for the demolition. It might be in other cases where there's a repurpose for the building and you're looking at selling the building as is. Vehicles and equipment, again, we're at about 7,700,000 per year. When you think about that, it sounds like a lot, but when you realize that a grader, for example, is $500,000, a fire truck, a pumper truck is just over $1 million. It's a pretty daunting figure. So again, it's replaced like for like, different procurement models such as demo units and the used market, finding more versatile units. So are there units that can be used summer and winter? There were previously, we had a summer use and a winter use. Consolidate, improve maintenance and extend the lifespan, more fuel efficient options, sell and eliminate. So that, again, will be the kind of checklist that council will be going through once we have a plan in place. So service level discussions, as I mentioned, bridges and culverts are the area that is the biggest need for the municipality, but also water and wastewater. Having said that, that is part of our rate study, and those need to be done every 5 years. So we will be looking at those as we go forward. So, question to council and the community, is there an appetite to lower any service level? Are there opportunities out there to lower the service level?
If I may, when was the last rate study that we did? Do you guys remember? We might be over 5 years, eh? I don't think the last council, I don't think you did one, did you? Okay. We should find out.
Yeah, and if need be, it probably should go in next year's budget. So how do we rationalize must-haves, water and wastewater, for example, versus the nice-to-have community halls, recreation facilities? And I always say that here's the balance. Recreation facilities and my background's parks and recreation, they're the things that make a community vibrant. And people appreciate, good recreation facilities and appreciate things like community halls. They expect you to keep the roads paved. They expect you to keep the bridge open. The day that a road gets paved, the next day people are complaining about something else. It's something that councils need to do, but it doesn't have the contribution to the quality of life that's so important to communities like ours, where we're trying to attract, family doctors, or we're trying to attract new businesses. It's the quality of life things that make a difference as well. So we also need to talk about, the level of community consultation. Like I said, this isn't a new process. Council began this 3 or 4 years ago when we started doing the studies. The process was laid out in 2017. We threw a pandemic in the middle of it, but Greenview did a very good job of coming up with these numbers. So, what does it need to look like? Is it a public meeting similar to this where we make presentations and some of the high level stuff, or is it a draft report that gets circulated as part of, a community survey. For example, I just completed the City of Kingston's capital survey where they asked me basically the same questions that I was putting forward here. Is this service level high or too low or just right kind of stuff? It's the whole Goldilocks kind of thing. So, and this is the reason I hand this out, because it's probably easier to look at in your handout. But under this scenario, so what did I do? I said, at our budget meeting, we talked about 3.89% was essentially what from 2003 to this year is what taxes would have gone up per year, instead of doing the ziggity zaggity and having really high years and really low years, the 3.89%. And again, I'm just picking a number, but the science behind it was that's what would have taken to get us to 6.26 million from 2002, is 3.89%. So increasing our tax levy for operational things by 3.89% and increasing our capital by 10%. And where does that get us? So just looking at the circle on the left-hand side there, under this scenario, we have as a starting point, $872,000 as our baseline contribution. Now note the two green or the three green squares there. That is what we're paying back to reserves. And what I'm suggesting is that in year 4, when we're done paying back those reserves, and this is to our bag tag reserve, that money starts going towards capital. So in year 4, you'll see at the bottom, the transfer to capital is $332,000. So how does 10% grow that figure? Keeping in mind that we need to be at $13.5 million per year. A 10% increase in our capital gets us to 2.08 million. So we're still 1.7 million behind at just increasing that by 10%. Now it does get us at the point where we would be reserving or investing 2.07 million per year in year 10. But the deficit is going to be growing at more than $10 million per year over that stretch. If you look at where the red arrow is in the top middle, instead of 13.5 million, the total amount to reserve, instead of 135 million, we would be at 13.2 million. So essentially, we would have 10% of what we would have needed in that first 10 years if we run 3.89 and 10%. So if that isn't depressing enough, the next page, I took essentially 6 different scenarios. The scenario I just ran with you is 3.89 and 10%. So that would equate to a 4.95% tax increase year over year. Keeping in mind, we're not setting tax rates. There's going to be 27 other things that council will have to consider each year as part of this. But just taking straight line, it would be just under 5% tax increase for 10 years to get to the point where we've got an annual capital of 2.07, which would be a deficit of 11.422 million. So if you follow down the second line, I did 5%, 10%, 15%, 20, 25, and good old 36.27, my Excel spreadsheet tells me would get us to exactly 13.5 million in year 10, which would still mean we'd run a deficit in year 1 through 9. But that gives you an order of magnitude. If we, and again, I'm not recommending this, I'm just providing these numbers to give council and the community some idea of, where the order of magnitude of what this needs to look like.
And I guess this is also reflecting that if we do everything that we're supposed to, that's in that list.
Correct.
Okay, that number begins to decline when we say we're no longer we're going to not replace that bridge. We're not going to do this road or whatever.
Correct.
So that would come down and hopefully.
And that's an assumption we do it all ourselves. Like if we had no help at all.
Yeah. I think Kelly's got little scenarios there. where He can pop in if we get, I don't know, is that part of your presentation?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
two slides.
He will show us where, if we do get help, how bad still we are. Anyway, are you going to say something, Peter?
No.
Okay, so go ahead, Kelly.
So the next slide, so even under scenario 6, we've only set aside 47 million of the 135. So even if we took the most severe of those 6 scenarios, which is a 36% increase on the capital side, while keeping 3.89 on the operating side, we're still short almost $48 million just in the first 10 years.
And this doesn't build in inflation.
No.
No, this is just working constant dollars right now.
These dollars.
Okay. Current dollar.
So, which leads us into the discussion of borrowing. So a reasonable borrowing strategy, and this is what a lot of municipalities have adopted, have said that we're going to, for large capital items, we're going to borrow for 50% and on the half-life. So that allows you to do catch up. You know, if you were current, you could borrow 50% on the full life. So 40 years on a building, you could borrow 40 years. What I'm suggesting is that there is, if you took that strategy, we'd be out of borrowing room so fast that it would make your head spin, and it isn't a sustainable model. So what I'm suggesting is, as a starting point for discussion, we talk about 50% of the purchase price spread over half the lifespan. And that will eventually, not in my lifetime, maybe in the mayor's lifetime, get us to a point where you can borrow on the full life cycle of the project. And this is straight out of your budget binder. Essentially, we are at 42% of our borrowing capacity as calculated by our treasurer. And this includes this year. So essentially, our remaining debt repayment limit is about $940,000. So,
And we should point out that 940,000 includes when we borrow internally as well. It's not just external.
Correct.
It's all.
And for water, sewer, and landfill, should we borrow for those as well? Although I've backed them out for the purposes of talking about tax, for the purposes of the debt limit, it would be included. The perverse part is the more we increase our budget, the more that goes up.
Right.
Having said that, it's still probably not sustainable if
No.
we're doing, $2 million a year in just debt payments.
Well, I think right now, if you look at it with our internal external debt and then that deficit portion that we're paying back, I think it's 13% of our existing tax levy is just going to pay debt.
Yeah.
And so the more debt we have, the more of our levy will go to pay debt.
Yeah. So, rough numbers, we'd probably be at 28 to 30% of of everybody's tax bill would be going to pay for debt.
Yeah.
So to try and give you a sense of what does this look like, the next table, I took the 135 million and said, geez, we're a really smart group. We could decrease that by 10% by making those tough decisions. And again, any one of these numbers can be changed. If council, wants to set a more aggressive target than that, we can calculate that. We get grants to cover 10% of that, and that gets us down to 109. We borrow for 50% of that. That's 54 million, which still leaves us 54 million
Impossible.
tax dollars over a 10-year
Impossible.
period. So what does that look like in terms of debt limit? And again, these are just numbers to stimulate discussion. We finance that currently, our Infrastructure Ontario. Perfect. We got AI solving. We're essentially looking at a annual debt payment of 3.4 million. That would be new debt, which is approximately double our current limit. So even at that optimistic look, with borrowing, with some grants, with reducing that total bill by 10%, which probably doesn't even begin to take into account the inflationary figures. We're probably still in a pretty deep hole. So what are the next steps? And again, the regulation is quite clear in terms of what needs to be done, and it's summarized in that second slide in your slide deck.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you again. Can you go back and remember you showed me if you did if we went back to a third, and a third, still what will you have to?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you can just speak to it. Then it's still phenomenal.
Yeah, it was still painful. Can you flip through it?
Oh.
This is that same spreadsheet that, if we change, let's say we can decrease the total by 20%. And we get grants to cover 66.67%. We're still looking at 1.2 million. We're still looking at about $17 million in total capital required, and that's the most optimistic of optimistic
That's right.
figures, and we're still can't afford it.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I wanted them to see that it's still almost impossible for us to even reach the limit.
Yeah.
Even with generous governments.
Back to the slides.
That's still a more inflation.
I know inflation, I know 25% tariffs.
So, next steps, and this is, back to, your worship, to how we wanted to conduct the conversation, but some of the questions we're going to need to answer between now and July 1st. Do we want to set an operating, and I've suggested 3.89%. Whatever number we pick would be wrong, but that's, our 20-year history is 3.89. And the reason why these two need to be calculated together is because these capital procurements will affect our operating budget as well. So annual increase in capital spending, I started at 10%. Is there an appetite to go higher? Is there an appetite or desire to go lower? Borrowing strategy, 50% of the lifespan, 50% of the total. And I would think we're going to need to set that threshold to try and get the numbers to work. We're probably going to need to set that threshold a lot higher than just say $1 million that we're going to borrow for, which is going to make the other end of the savings equation that much more difficult. The regulation requires us to talk about service levels. And again, the only one that realistically we can drop is the level of service provided to roads. So for example, we target the provincial minimum maintenance standards, but in many areas we overperform. Is that something that council and the community are willing to entertain? Are we willing to look at certain roads and return them to gravel? Those kinds of discussions. What will the public input consultation process look like? Like I said, we've done a lot already with the Greenview report and the various reports that have followed that. And obviously water, wastewater, and solid waste discussions. And what does that rate look like going forward in order to meet the requirements of the regulation? And that's probably a 2026, 27 discussion.
Well, thank you. I mean, we knew this was coming. And we knew it was going to be bad. And we knew we'd never be able to afford it. So there are no surprises here. As you said, this is not a plan. This is putting the information on the table about what we're up against. And now the hard work is going to begin. well, we have to start looking at like, you know, our infrastructure assets and what we're going, make some tough decision of what we're going to keep, what we're going to have to let go, what what standards we might have to lower or whatever. But that is something we'll be working on over the next couple of months and whatnot. Any comments here, gang? I mean, it's actually unbelievable. It's like, you know,
Thanks for the optimism,
yeah.
honestly. Holy moly.
Yeah. Jim, did you want to say anything? Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, thank you, your worship. Yeah, we're in a heck of a spot here. But like, since we've got so many bridges, there's a bridge asset management tool that Sterling Rod and Hughes they have in place, works well for them. As Kelly has mentioned, well-maintained assets last longer and pay dividends in the long run. We may even find that we need to create our own asset management tools or systems for other things. We need to reach out and work with our neighbors in all municipalities in Ontario to find things that do work. We need a year ago, I think we said 11.5 million. Now it's up to 13.5. With the 25% tariffs, it will be up to 16, almost 17 million. Joint procurements create power, and I've been saying that for years, and we've taken advantage of that now and then. And my opinion is that not only are these assets ours, but they are also the province and the federal assets as well. And we've suggested ways to, for instance, and I don't want to beat this thing, but we've suggested even the license plate sticker would inject $6 billion over 5 years into this thing. That would surely help. They like I said, they had a toll system for the Burlington Skyway. They built the new Skyway bridge and they eliminated the toll. We need to think about this and work more closely with the government. And I know we've been trying, but somehow they've got to realize that some of this user pay stuff has to come back.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fleeler. Couldn't agree with you more. Anybody else around the table? Again, I want to make sure that people they realize that this is not what we are doing. We want to be upfront and transparent. This is what we are facing, and that we are going to have to make some very hard decisions. Now, Kelly, did you say, like, I know that we've looked at the asset management plan as a great tool because it does put into perspective what we have coming down the pipeline, so to speak. However, now the province is asking us, now you've had your plan for a number of years, you've gotten used to it, how are you going to pay for these things coming down? But there is no penalty if we can't come up with the money that they think we need according to the plan, other than the fact that we might not be able to do the work. That's the penalty.
Yeah, there is no penalty component to the regulation, but the regulation also says if you can't meet your obligations, what is going to be your approach? And that's why, Ryan and I went through and said, okay, each one of these asset categories, what are our options? So having said that, I suspect that there's going to be some aggressive auditors out there that are going to be looking at this. I suspect that, future provincial governments may say that, reaching your target is a condition of receiving further grants or OMPF, or, they have a habit of hanging things over municipalities' heads. But you're correct. At this point, there is no penalty component for it.
Well, like the Eastern Ontario Warrens Caucus has identified in Eastern Ontario alone, the small area, the municipalities, it's a $6 billion operating deficit. Okay. And that's not looking at Toronto and the bigger cities and stuff. Like, this is phenomenal. Okay. Like, we've got bridges that are 100 years old it doesn't even enter into the lifespan when you're looking at something today, like when you're talking about over the life of the product, 100 years old. And definitely these bridges have to be replaced. We're grateful that they've lasted as long as they have, but we're all in the same boat. The infrastructure deficit nationally must be phenomenal. We all witnessed what happened to Calgary this year when their water main pipes burst because and now have to be replaced. Everybody is going to be vying for these dollars, and we all know how these governments treat small rural and northern Ontario. If there's an issue and money has to be doled out, it's going to go to the big cities. It really is. So, and one of your assumptions was we don't really expect anything because that's been the trajectory of what we've been experiencing. Nothing. So it's going to be like, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to work our way through this with the limited funds that we have and prioritize those things, which we absolutely need to have and keep going. And that is a process, I guess, which will take place over the next 2 months or whatever, working with you. I can't thank you enough for putting this into perspective. The amount of effort that you have put into this is incredible. It's been eye-opening. And as much as I don't like what I'm seeing, I'm glad that it's in front of me. So I know what we've got coming down the pipeline. Anybody else want to say anything? Yes, go ahead. Deputy Mayor Marsh, and then
The only thing I was gonna say, Mayor, was when we go to conferences and we speak to other councillors from other municipalities, I have yet to see another small township like ours have 52 bridges. I remember a conversation, they were upset they had 8 to look after. They didn't know how they were gonna do it. Just imagine what they would think what we have to go through. So this is, I think we're kind of unique in the sense of how much infrastructure we have for such a small population and limited tax base. So
just to follow up on that, a large part of what we have today was downloaded by the county. And it was downloaded by the county when Mike Harris was downloading all the services that we all have experienced. Only 2 counties, I believe, downloaded their county roads and bridges, us and Frontenac, I think you said. All the other counties maintain those things. So that is a huge expense for us, because that's like Marlbank Road, for example. Okay, like, these are major roads that are now our responsibility, which I believe did not come with any reserve funds at the time. Go ahead. Oh, no. Jake.
As we all sit around the table and look at the negatives of this, I just look at the positive, maybe not positive in the fact that we have this money, but it's serving its purpose. If this would have been here 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I'm sure we wouldn't have hard topped a bunch of the roads, the rural roads that really, it doesn't affect whether or not those people have built homes on those roads. And I think now more than ever, when people move into rural Ontario, they want to move rural. And I don't think it's a deterrent that there's a gravel road. So I do think that this is serving the purpose it was meant to do. And so I think we need to look at it that way and make those tough decisions and know that the decisions you're making, like, although it's on our shoulders, it's the decisions that were so easily pushed by because the thought wasn't there looking ahead up to 30 years. So that's what I'm seeing as somebody who wants to raise a family in the community and has a business here that I can't really move. It's I have to look ahead and look for the positives and see where there can be improvements to keep the community functioning and to still try to keep that spirit that we've grown to love, but do it in a way that makes sense. And I think this makes that easier to make those hard decisions.
This definitely makes it easier to make those hard decisions. The problem is finding the money to even deal with what we're going to identify. That's going to be the issue. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Valleycat. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier and Deputy Mayor Marsh.
I'll be very quick, and I appreciate everybody's comments and what they've said. Kelly, I want to say thank you for doing this. Till today, when we talked about capital assets, till you kind of saw it spelt out like this, you didn't really have a true understanding of the long-term impact. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that we got elected to be visionary, to be strategic, and to think long-term. And this definitely puts us in the mindset where we have to keep our community viable, keep it positive, keep it attractive. And that's going to be a tough job, but I think with the right people around the table and support from staff and community, it's something that's achievable. So I just want to say thank you.
Again, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Gloria for all of her hard work getting us to this point, and to my colleague Ryan for putting up with me and listening to harebrained theories and slapping me across the head every once in a while. And he's also led, our OSUM studies and Rosny studies, and we are in a information wise, we do have the information we need to be making these tough decisions. And I like the way Councillor Palmetier put it, we're a glass half full kind of community, and let's figure this out together.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Could I have, did we do a mover and a seconder on that? Yes, okay. All in favor of the report as tabled and discussed? Thank you. Be resolved that council receive the interim CA report OPP funding update. All in favor? Sorry, thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry, I moved on to the other one. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Be it resolved that council receive the 5817 asset management planning for municipal infrastructure financial implications report, and further the council direct the MCL to develop a draft plan based upon an estimated annual increase in contributions of oh my gosh, what I would like to see us do is I'd like to, before we even look at what it's going to be, let's get together and look at what we have coming down the pipeline and determine what we would do and what we wouldn't, and that will help us determine what the contribution should be. Are you okay with that? Is council okay with that? Okay, let's work on that first. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to table the OPP funding update? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Marsh. Thank you, Councillor Valley-Cat. Basically, this was the presentation that we attended. And I just want to mention that although we would have experienced a 4.4% increase in OPP costs this year, the province did eat it for this year, saying because there was so much public outcry. However, they did not commit to 2026. So we could be in for a 4.4, and here you're talking 3.89, and already a 4.4 to at plus whatever the cost for 2026 would be. So we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. Any questions on that report? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Marsh.
So that 50% we put away, will that affect that as well, right?
It goes to that
Right.
and increase, yeah. Any other comments? Seeing none, be it resolved that council receive the interim CA report, OPP funding update. All in favor? Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder to table the Public Works Capital Assessment procurement for 2025, please? Thank you, thank you, Councillor Fleeler. Are you cleaning your screen, or are you putting your hand up to say? Okay. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Marsh. Okay. Again, will this be on that screen? Will this be on the screen for Jim?
Yeah.
Okay, Jim, this is going to be on the screen for you, okay?
This is the same as, sorry, this is the same as what's in the staff report, but just made larger for the old eyes in the room. Not you, Jacob. It is the 2025 summary. So, and Ryan will walk us through this, but essentially, these are the large items out of the approved budget. But I also put in there George Street and James Street And we also have the opportunity to purchase a snowplow, which we were going to do this year, but not receive till next year, but there's an opportunity to receive a demo. So I think the easiest way to do this is to just ask Ryan to go through them. They're numbered 1 through 9, and we can go through them. You can see where it says in and out. All of them are currently marked as in to give it the total. But we know when we get to the bottom that some of these items are going to have to be removed. The other change that we've made separating out the budget, as you know, Sterling Rodden is purchasing the same kinds of prefab bridges. They're purchasing them this year and installing them next year. So Ryan's best efforts at, what is the capital cost to buy it and what is the installation cost? So we can model those differently. Rocky Altar was removed from the budget, but we put it in here for discussion. So that allows council perhaps to say, let's buy 3 bridges and not install them till next year, which works out to roughly the same amount. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Reed, to go through the items 1 through 9.
I think we should mention too that in regards to these 3 bridges, we have to decide tonight if we want to do that. Because if we can get our quote in before the tariffs, we have a chance of getting a better price on it. Once the tariffs come down, all bets are off. I'm going to let Ryan probably explain that a bit more. That's what Sterling has done. That's why they got their bridges now.
Center Hastings, I think.
Same thing. Okay. Center Hastings did the same
They
thing.
were, they're big, they're
Yes.
steel, I think, and stuff.
Okay, thank you. So there we go. Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess the first item we have to discuss is the Kinland Road bridge. This will be for the bridge itself. So the total cost will include preliminary site survey, detailed design of the footings, the bridge itself, the final inspection, and all the regulatory approvals. That gets the ball rolling as soon as we buy this bridge to be shovel ready as soon as we need to be. At this point, the installation cost for the bridge as well, these are all for the installation, I should say, is high-end numbers. There's still more expected cost savings for these as well. But basically for the whole bridge to be, dropped right at our doorstep, that's the all-in number, the 286, and that would be amortized, I guess, over the next 20 years.
Okay, so just walking us through. So we have the 3 bridges that we talked about. I think we had agreed that we weren't going to do Rocky Altar this year. But the question is, do we want to go ahead and purchase 3 bridges? Because I think you had indicated that if we didn't do Rocky Altar, if we found another way of doing something, that bridge would still be able to be used in another application, another bridge replacement somewhere else. So it's not a bad investment, so to speak.
That's correct. It kind of get us ready down the road. If we did decide not to go forward with that on Rocky Altar, there's likely other spots we could use it to replace a bridge down the road and lock in pricing now, opposed to dealing with the tariffs and inflation later on.
Go ahead.
So I don't want to be overly critical, but I don't like the word likely. I need to know that there's somewhere else that it can go.
Oh, if we're going to be, yes, definitely. If we're going to buy that, yes, you're right. Exactly.
So we can use it right at Bradshaw. It's the other end of Kinland Road. So it's our 10-ton bridge currently. It could fit there. And that's one that needs to be replaced within the next couple of years anyway. Just an option.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that would be those 3 bridges, and then the Flinton Road, that is the one that you said that there is a joint tender out right now?
We're speaking to other municipalities at this point.
You do that all the time. There's something about your voice.
Okay. Yeah, we're speaking to other municipalities at this point to secure better pricing. I reached out to some of our neighbors. They're kind of going the surface treatment route where we're looking at Everlife. It's a more traveled road, better product, lasts longer. So I believe Madoc Township indicated they have about I don't want to say it for sure. I don't know if it's been approved or not, but there is some they're looking at. So we're waiting to get numbers from them to joint procure.
The George James Street is definitely out, but that was part of our Hughes funding, the Housing Enabling Water System Fund. 2 intakes that we applied for and both intakes denied. So that one is definitely out. Okay, now, this snow plow, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we went through canoe procurement again. So we used canoe procurement to get some pricing on these new units. They came back and said they had a demo unit available right now. If we could kind of lock in, we'd secure the pricing that they're already building it at now instead of waiting till the fall. And then obviously getting a more increased price. So at this point, if we were to go with the demo unit, we would actually receive it 6 months earlier and save $27,000 opposed to waiting. And then who knows what the future looks like if we wait even longer. So
And how many clicks are on that baby?
0.
0.
It's being built as we speak. And the
Okay.
reason it's a demo is because the prices are already locked in for what is being built as.
Oh,
The only difference between a one we would spec out is the color at this point. So we're going to get a white chassis instead of a blue one.
Okay.
It's the same truck we would buy anyway.
Okay. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Just a quick question to the, Ryan. I think we set aside 90-some thousand towards the truck. Is that gonna be included, like taken off of this down the road here, or? Is that a lot, or this year's budget, we set aside 90-some thousand, I think, for a truck.
We set aside 120,000 for a
Okay.
used truck.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was. So
To-
can we apply that here, or is that for another?
This is for another truck.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we just took one of our trucks off the road and we keep having a lot of breakdowns at this point. We've actually had to rely on neighboring municipalities to utilize their equipment to get us through some of these storms. So I would still like to see in the spring when we have some options come up to purchase a used one and then still go ahead with this order. It's still not relieving us of the fact that we need more of these plow trucks. My idea is we're still going to get a better price now than if we keep waiting. So,
Okay, I just was
Yeah.
wondering. about that.
anyway.
Okay, well, I think the one decision is, do we want to proceed? Because you're gonna have to get that call in right now about the 3 bridges. Or do we always want to do the 2 bridges? We're gonna have to borrow, where's Jimmy go?
Where's the next bridge that's on tap, like after Rocky Altar?
Bradshaw one, maybe.
There's multiple. I don't know at the top of my head. I believe the most expensive one at this point is Lost Channel Road. Don't quote me without it right in front of me, but Lost Channel, it's not feasible for us to really look at and do a traditional bridge build. It would be, I think, multiple millions of dollars to do it. I believe the one that was going to be suited for us was Bradshaw, but I'd have to go back and look and get you a firm answer. It's on East Hungerford Road. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Valiquette.
So have we explored the opportunity or the possibility of culverts in any of these that we want to do right now? Not Queensboro, but Kinlan. I don't know. And if would culverts be less expensive?
Through his worship, Councillor Valiquette, I believe even we did that tour over to Tyndanaga. We checked out culverts over there. And after looking at the prices they had paid, it would be not cost effective. And the longevity of the pipes wouldn't be the same as well. I don't want to put out numbers with them without them in front of me, but I think the modular bridge is our best option at this point.
Councillor Palmetier.
No, neither of these 3 bridges were on our potential discard list. I think we should be trying to purchase them, all 3 of them. Not necessarily installing all 3. Like we have Queensboro needs to go in it. It's a very, very busy road. Kinlan's very low, but you know, it's the nice part about purchasing these and keeping them is we're still buying time. We're
Yeah.
getting a little bit of time on those other bridges, until they're replaced. As for the snowplow, I just, really, if we want a good piece of equipment that's working when we need it, 5 years is all you probably want to count on. And seeing, 89,000 plus an operator plus fuel, it brings back to those, where is it cost effective to own or to hire? The one thing that we see when we do hire is some of it is older stuff. However, if somebody's there is able to make it work, is there a way for the municipality to make it work? So I have an issue right now saying yes to the snowplow, I guess.
So you're saying yes to the snowplow?
No, I'm having an issue saying
Okay.
yes to the snowplow right here tonight. But the bridges, I'd get coming.
Because the demo's only good for, like, you have to call tonight to say that we're a go.
To the mayor, I'd be making the call tonight to lock it in, yeah, because who knows who else is gonna speak for it? And our 15 valid day quote is due today,
Okay,
so.
and what's your capacity right now without that?
It's great when our vehicles aren't broke down. Who knows when that's gonna happen? The vehicle we were looking at replacing this year, is the one that's still going. The other one actually broke down, so who knows when this other truck could go? And then we're down to 4 trucks and we're basically relying on our contractors at this point and working out more money that we shouldn't have to be.
Okay, because then if we go down one to the next section, you also have the grader. And then the pickup truck and the parks pickup truck. And these were ones that we had talked about and budgeted about going ahead with this year.
Yes, we did.
Okay. See, I think, first of all, we're taking out the 1.9 million right off. So Kelly, can you adjust that screen there? Well, you did. So what are we looking at now as a total? We've gone from 4,958 to, okay. And then we've talked about Flinton Road. I don't know, like there again, we're looking at another 865 for part 1. There's also part 2 on this. And we did talk about, you mentioned about pulverizing or something, like, this is one of these roads that we have to decide at some point, are we going to continue to make it a hard top road or not? I think the one thing is that I was trying to stress with Minister Surma is that this road is like a major highway road because all the GPS redirects traffic from Highway 41 through this road to get to Highway 7 faster. We get a lot of increased traffic on this road as a result of that GPS. So, like, we have to make some decisions here. Do we put that off this year and focus on the 3 bridges and the snowplow and the vehicles down below and make that a priority this year? Deputy Mayor.
I've recently been going up to Flinton quite a bit for work. The road isn't fabulous, but it's not horrendous either. To pulverize, I think it'd be a shame. I think it could be, I guess, massaged for a little while to get it through is the right word.
Does that mean like patching?
Yes.
Go ahead.
There's so many patches on that road, it almost looks like a new road.
That road is, yeah, beyond patching. We could spend every day up there patching that road. Yeah.
I just know from traveling, it didn't like it's not great, but it's not one I say it's terrible, where I say,
No, I mean,
wow.
if we have to look at it in the light that we have some real priorities. I mean, things that we have to do, and there's things that we would like to do. We need to focus on what money we have today and the things that we need to do.
Your worship,
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Fleeler.
sorry, I couldn't get your attention there, but thank you.
That's okay.
So as we look, I agree with the 3 bridges, the snowplow. Do we really need to purchase the 2 half-tons? And we've also got a steam unit on the books for 22,000. I don't know if we could purchase a cheaper one to get us, it do the same thing, portable unit, only, you only do one unit at a time, but. And another thing that we've got to look at is further down in the agenda, we've got, the culvert for the Flinton Road, which is $58,000 too. So we got to consider. There's another 58,000 that we have to consider. But so what I'm saying, do we bite the bullet on some of these half tons, or do we bite the bullet on the snowplow? Like, I do agree that we should buy the bridges, and if we can't install them right now, we can use them. I think there's 5 other places where we could use the Rocky Alder Bridge. But the snowplow, is there some way that we could tweak the budget to use some of the cash that we've made available for other things that we might be easier to get along without, rather than a snowplow?
Okay, well, is everybody in agreement with the 3 bridges?
I'm kind of off and down on the Rocky Altar, but yeah, I'm.
Okay, okay. Okay, that's right. Okay, so the 3 bridges. Okay, Flinton Road. Can we put that off for another year? Are we okay? Go ahead.
With the Flinton Road, your worship, the one thing that I keep looking at is if we're going to do the first 6 kilometers, we're committing to the next 6
That's right.
kilometers. So I kind of see it as if we're financing a portion or all, or however much, it's probably more effective to do the 12 kilometers.
Well, we don't have the money.
I know we don't have the money, but we're committing the money if we do 6.
Well, that's why I'm saying,
So,
let's
so
not do it.
do we wait for an opportunity when we can do 12?
Because that's a huge chunk right there.
I think we could personally put it off. That's my feeling.
It is bad.
It is bad.
In the
but-
summer, I only was on it twice and it's bad. But it actually makes people drive a reasonable speed as well on that road,
Yeah.
because people drive too fast on that one.
Your worship, I just traveled down the road Saturday night, and there's spots where it is in tough shape, but I don't know why the province is denying us any funding. Like, they're putting us in a hell of a position here. We need vehicles to maintain our roads. We need bridges. We need all kinds of things. And they're promising all this money, and they're still neglecting small town Ontario.
I will say that if we're struggling here, I can't imagine what the position we're going to be in when we have to start looking at the infrastructure across the municipality.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, and like the province has turned the blinkers off. They've actually since 2018 they've denied us any funding, any major funding. So, and if I've made mistakes, I apologize for that. But I think we pushed to make things better, to make sure that we can keep the ball rolling.
Okay, let's move on here. Please go ahead.
Well, I kind of concur with my fellow councilors that we should probably put Clinton Road off until we're able to do it. But I'd like to go back to the tandem. I think that right now you've pulled a tandem off the road that wasn't supposed to come off the road because it's in such bad shape that it wouldn't pass the safety, that it's rotted underneath. Am I correct?
The one that was pulled off the road, both turbos are gone. The manifolds are shot. I think it's got a stuck EGR valve. There's so much blow by it, just you don't know when it's going to go.
Right, so it wouldn't pass safety this summer though.
Unless we dumped a pile of money into it. Yeah.
And then we have one that's actually older than that. Am I correct?
It's actually a year newer, but that was one we were looking at replacing and getting off the road. So again, this is just another unit that's
So
waiting to go any minute.
provide a certain level of service. And it's great that our neighboring municipalities have stepped up and loaned us a
Yes.
tandem for a few weeks to get us through the rest of this year. But we do have the capacity to have the proper equipment in place. And I think that we're remiss if we don't, we're setting the department up for failure
I'm good with it. Yeah.
if we don't do it. Quite honestly. Sorry.
Yes, please go ahead.
Two aspects to the demo. One is the timeline. So we would be able to have this pretty close to the start of next winter season. And saving $27,000. If we wait till next year's budget, it'll be 2027 before it's in the yard.
And God knows how much money.
$60,000.
That's right.
And
Now, okay, even though we're taking delivery, do we have to pay it all up front this year?
We would have to pay for it all up front. So when that chassis gets to the bodybuilder, there'll be about a $220,000 payment.
Okay.
And then as soon as it's completed, it's about, well, the remainder, I think it's 160.
Okay.
So
Oh, so this year, yes, of course.
it
okay.
will be. So if we were to put it off, we would pay half this year and then the remainder in the spring if we were to get a brand new unit.
Okay.
But we would spread the payments over 3 years.
That's right. Go ahead.
Your worship, just the piece with the snowplow with me, and since I've been on council, everybody hates the idea of contractors, and everybody, I can tell that they're against it. There are things on the farm that we wouldn't spend money, or that we can afford based on what we pay a contractor. However, we only have to pay for it when the job is done. So that's the piece I'm getting at, whether it's snow plowing, whether it's grading, things like that. If the plow is not available, if it's not on the road, we don't pay for it. If we own it, we're still paying for that plow, we're still paying for that person. Same with the grader. We've went through times, my tenure on council, that we've had graders down and we've also had to rent graders. We're paying for those graders that we own, but then we've also had to bring in other ones. If things are contracted, you pay when that service is done. And that is where I think we shrug it off. Everyone doesn't want someone else to make a dollar, and I understand that. However, there also is a point where, you know, sometimes people can spread that work over maybe 2 municipalities to pay for that one item. So I just don't want this to get lost after this discussion today. However, in the predicament we're in right now, I'm good with the snowplow.
It is a good point. Now, like, Sterling has moved to leasing almost all of their major big vehicles. And the reason is that, if something breaks down, they automatically get a new vehicle right away while that's being repaired. And they feel that is their best investment, is to lease these things rather than own them outright. And after the lease is expired, you get a new one, like, or you can buy out if you want. But you raised some good points about the need to contract. I think there's always that feeling out there, you're vulnerable when you're relying on contractors. You're vulnerable from a price escalation. You're vulnerable that they might not be able to make it. And when it's your own team and whatnot, there's that commitment that you have to be there to do it. And I'm not besmirching contractors. I mean, it's a perception, like, you know. So, okay, so if we did go with the, we put off Flinton until we feel that we have enough money to do the 12 kilometers all at once. Okay, so that's out. You got that out of there now, Kelly? What are we down to?
2.178. Now that's still with the installation.
Okay, and take those out right now as well. And we can,
Delete the installation one.
of Queensboro.
Queensboro should-
Yes, leave Queensboro in. And take the other two out. And now we're down to. Okay, so Queensboro.
Can I ask a question while he's doing that?
Yeah, go ahead.
The mayor's talked about leasing. Is leasing the grader and those 2 pickup trucks an option for us as well?
I'm sure there is an option, and we've been looking at, you know, buying them and owning them. So we have some value at the end of the day, but we could look at those too. Yeah.
Just going back with the mayor said, I remember the mayor of Sterling saying how much he likes the idea of leasing. They'd lease their graders, and he said it was a massive win for them. So maybe that could cut our numbers down severely too, like as far as leasing as opposed to owning. and flipping them every 3 years, like he was saying. You know,
I guess the way that some of these are set up that, okay, how long would it, say the demo grader, how long would it last? Typically,
Through the mayor. So at this point, we're kind of locked in with it till we make a decision on it.
no,
So
I'm just wondering how
Sorry.
long the lifespan of that vehicle.
that vehicle, it depends how much we used every year. The grader we're looking at getting rid of is 22 or 23 years old. So we'll say 15 to be conservative.
So then, not leasing, we're saying that we can have that vehicle paid off in 3 years with the potential life of another 15 afterwards. Right?
Supposedly, yeah.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I don't have leasing options for the big public works, but I do have. The chief and I will be going through. Just to give you a sense of, the pumper truck. Purchasing is by far the cheapest option.
Mhm.
There are advantages to leasing, but if you are going to keep it in a pumper truck, you only make it to a 20-year lifespan on a pumper truck, and it's only got 1,800 hours. on it.
Yeah.
It's completely different than a plow truck. But the leasing options, and they're very aggressive with their leasing options. That they provided us, on a 10-year lease, you're paying $400,000.
no,
On a 5-year lease, you're paying almost exactly $100,000. So there are advantages.
But it costs.
But
you.
you're paying for it.
Okay. Now, do we have the fire truck in this?
No, because the chief couldn't be here. He's
Okay.
just back from vacation.
But is that something that we were talking about putting in an order for delivery in a couple of years or something, right?
Correct, but at the last council meeting, we were also directed for the chief and I to meet to talk about other options. He did get me the leasing option before he went away on vacation, but we haven't talked about any other options.
Okay.
I just bring it up to say,
Okay, but that means, but I guess where I'm getting at eventually, the amount that we're borrowing is gonna be even higher when you look at what we're bringing in. A fire truck at some point. Okay, so,
Not cutting vacation.
okay, so at the snowplow, okay, what about there's the demo grader, and you said we're already down already?
Pardon me?
Grader? You-
Graders, we're in bad shape with one of them right now. If we were to keep it on the road, we're looking at 90,000 in repairs this year.
Oh my
Yep.
God,
That's the
okay,
Volvo.
That's the Volvo, yeah.
okay, well, geez, okay, okay,
$70,000 saving.
okay.
Yeah, this
So
is a
that-
very good deal.
If that was left in, and then Councilor Freeler raised the question about the 2 trucks. What about the trucks?
I believe they've been approved for this year's budget as
Well,
far,
Well, now that we're reworking.
yeah,
some
that's
things.
fine.
Okay,
So even today, I kind of jumped the gun. We closed our tender. Our bids today came in, all were within budget to get. We could have them within a couple months. I can bring someone forward to the next council meeting. But for us, Public Works, we went with a little bit bigger truck. We're looking at kind of making it more versatile. Like Kelly said, we're gonna try multi-purpose some more equipment if we can. We're likely gonna look at maybe down the road getting a snow plow for it, sander, kind of make it like an auxiliary truck for ourselves. If we were to lose our 2-ton in a snowstorm right now, we basically have no way to clear our bridge decks. So this would kind of fill that gap as
How-
well.
How old is the one that you currently have?
I believe it's a 2014 Dodge
How many clicks on
300. It's the one that's got transmission issues.
it? Okay,
But at this point too, it's for us to even sell it on Gov Deals, it's worth scrap price. So we're just gonna
Okay.
run it till it's
Okay.
till it's what it is now. Yeah.
okay, and then the parks one. Can anybody speak to that?
I believe it was a replacement for Jay's personal pickup. He's got another truck too that's don't quote me, a 2011. It's in pretty bad shape too. So
Okay,
The old fire truck that they had. But Parks and Rec was using that.
Yeah, there was a discussion around them taking it.
They were last summer.
Yeah. The red one's here somewhere.
That was an extra. I looked at one.
park staff does do a lot of movement across, just like Public Works through the summer across the municipality.
Yeah, and then we got all those graveyards to take care of too. Man, bada boom, bada bing. Okay, so then if we do the 3 bridges plus the installation of the Queensboro, and we put in the snowplow and then the 3 vehicles down below, what are we looking at?
2.1.
2.2. But a number of those will be paid off over 3 years.
Yeah,
One
so we would borrow for the bridges and the snowplow we would do internally, the others we do internally.
Okay, now, Councillor Fleeler also wondered if if we're gonna borrow internally as well, is there opportunity to borrow more from the bag tag fund?
There is, but if we go back to my first presentation, that just makes our capital that much more difficult. Because
Yeah.
if you remember those 3 green boxes, I'm converting into capital at the time that that's paid back. So yes, you could, but you'd be making your operating budget better and making your long-term capital budget.
Okay, so
worse.
what does this, total annual new borrowing? What does this take of our total tax levy?
You thought we read that, you couldn't take the ancestor and then you take that,
90,285.
those big blue pills.
So it's essentially that 2025 column
Mm-hmm,
and the snowplow is internal.
mm-hmm.
So that total there is 90,285.
And the ones down below?
Those are internal.
Oh, they're internal as well.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it would count.
Oh,
towards
that's
it,
not bad.
but
Okay,
it-
okay. But still would count towards our internal debt paying back for the other ones.
Correct.
That's right. So what does that give us for the internal and external debt total? Can you do that?
179.
For arthritis and
Another
Jim, can you go on mute, please? Thank you.
380.
179 and 380? Oh, 380, okay.
So that's total
Okay,
internal.
okay. So,
179.
so we're looking at about 7% of the tax levy going towards that. Okay, good enough.
Can I just ask one?
Sure.
Okay, so if we leave that installation, does that get Queensboro in this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
If we
Well,
leave-
it depends if you opt in or not. So by looking at it, Queensboro, And, yeah.
We locked it in.
so. Yeah, it began installed this year.
Okay, are we okay to go with this?
Mhm.
Everybody?
Yeah, I'm just trying to read.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Your worship,
yes, go ahead, Jim.
yeah, I couldn't hear part of the conversation, so the reason I asked about borrowing money within is because when we pay it back, we put the interest in our own pockets. And that's the only reason I wanted to bring that up. So I couldn't hear exactly what's on the table right now. So the 3 bridges.
The
the
3
plow,
bridges, the snowplow, the grader and the 2 trucks. And it works out to 380,000 internal and external debt payments annually.
and
That
it's
includes the installation.
And that includes the installation of Queensboro.
right, that's what he told Jimmy to get, or I picked up,
Okay,
like Bosch Health.
okay, good. Okay, so let me go back here. I just want to see what we got on the table here. Again, Kelly, thank you. Like, looking at these things and being able to change things on the fly. I mean, wonderful. Okay, so be it resolved that council receive the report of the Public Works regarding 2025 capital asset procurement. And further that the Public Works proceed with the following items. Kinnan Road Bridge replacement, Queensboro Bridge replacement, Queensboro Bridge installation, Rocky Altar Bridge replacement, snowplow, grader, and then the trucks were already approved, you said. That's why they're not here. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, wow. So much for my getting out of here early. Okay, so now, can I have a mover and a seconder to table the Public Works update, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Marsh. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Okay, are there any questions on the Public Works Department update? I think we've given Kelly enough time to speak tonight. No questions? Be it resolved that council accept the Public Works Department update report as presented. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, supply and delivery. Can I have a mover and a seconder to table the supply and delivery culverts for Flinton Road Award? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Marsh. Thank you, Councillor Valley Cat. Yeah. Okay, this is the one that Councillor Fleeler had raised earlier. Are there any questions on this? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor
Just
Marsh.
the first question that came to my mayor was, we raised our procurement policy. Could they have not just, does this have to come to us, or does the power of the CEO allow them to do that now? That was what my first thought was.
Two things. It is over the limit, so it does need to come here.
I thought it was 100,000 now.
That's for the
Sure.
CAO.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
But I guess the question is, do we proceed with this if we're not doing the surface as well?
Right. And so there's no point to, okay, so this is off the table, Councillor Fleeler. Since we're not doing Flinton, we're not going to proceed with this, okay? Okay, any further questions? Okay, be it resolved that council direct staff to proceed, to not proceed with the purchase of culverts from Armtech at this time. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, bylaw enforcement. Could I have a mover and a seconder to table the bylaw enforcement officer update for January 2025 Tweed bylaw operations log and statement of revenue and expenditures as of January 31st, 2025. Mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Fleeler. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Any questions on the bylaw enforcement officer report? I did have one. Sorry, let me just go to it here if I can pull that up. It was just, the numbers struck me. Deserano had 17 calls, so to speak. We had 15. Yet the number of hours spent in ours was 50.75 and Deserano was 24.75. It just seems weird that they have more calls, like even when you look at Sterling. And the numbers are, the number for Sterling is wrong there. That should be 16. Where it's 17.72, it should be 16. So, because it should reflect the up-to-date one up above. But I was just curious. So maybe if someone could follow up and just get an answer to that, why we're almost double the hours. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. Be it resolved that council receive the January 2025 Tweed bylaw operations log as presented. All in favor? Thank you. Good. I have a mover and a seconder to table the committee board reports, and this would be the Building Inspection Services report. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Marsh. Thank you very much, Councillor Valley Cat. Any questions on that report? Seeing none, be it resolved that council receive the committee board reports as presented. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we have a bylaw. Okay, I have a mover and a seconder to table bylaw number 2025-18, a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2012-30 as amended for Cottage Lane. Thank you very much, Councillor Valley Cat. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Any questions on that bylaw? Seeing none, be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-18 be read a first, second, third, and final time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 24th day of February 2025. All in favor? Thank you. Items for consideration. Could I have a mover and a seconder to table an item from Joanna Derillo, submitted a request to council to approve the release of the 500 deposit for allowing a trailer at their property while under construction. Mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Thank you, Councillor Valley Cat. Any questions on that? Seeing none, be it resolved that council authorize the release of the $500 trailer agreement deposit to Joanna Derillo. All in favor? Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder to table Judy Liu Luo submitted a request to council to approve the release of the 500 deposit for allowing a trailer at their property while under construction. Move in a seconder, please. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Marsh. Thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Any questions on said request? Seeing none, be it resolved that council authorize the release of the $500 trailer agreement deposit to Julie Luo. All in favor? Thank you. Can I have a move and a seconder to table the Autism Ontario invites the municipality of Tweed to join them as they celebrate the Spectrum on World Autism Day and formally proclaim April 2nd, 2025 as World Autism Day. Move and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Demarche. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. I'll read the bylaw. Whereas World Autism Day is recognized on April 2nd, 2025 in Canada, Autism Ontario is one of the largest collective voices representing the autism community, and the work they do helps all autistic individuals and families in their communities have access to meaningful support, information, and connections, not only on April 2nd, but every day throughout the year. And whereas autism impacts more than 135,000 individuals in Ontario, representing 1 in every 50 Canadian children and youth. It not only influences the lives of autistics, but also their friends, families, and communities. It's crucial for us to raise awareness and acceptance, provide support, and promote a more inclusive society. And whereas autism is a diverse spectrum that varies widely among individuals, each person's experience with autism can change over time. This evolving journey highlights the uniqueness of every autistic individual, emphasizing the need for understanding and support tailored to their specific needs. And whereas Autism Ontario is the leading source of information referral on autism, and since 1973 has been providing support, information, and opportunities for thousands of families and individuals across the province. And whereas Autism Ontario is devoted to raising public awareness about autism and addressing the everyday challenges faced by individuals with autism, their families, and the professionals who work alongside them. We urge everyone to recognize and celebrate the unique differences and needs of others, fostering an inclusive environment where all individuals can participate fully in activities and discussions. Together, we can create a society that values and includes everyone. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Tweed does hereby recognize April 2nd as the World Autism Day, while committing to embrace awareness and acceptance today and every day throughout the year. All in favor? Thank you. And could I have a mover and a seconder to table the fence viewer appointment report? Thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Any questions on the 2 people who are being proposed? And that is Natalie Mitz and Kevin Baker. Yes, please go ahead.
The mayor, we've had one resign. Is there another one that's resigned since, or? So it doesn't hurt to have an extra is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any comments, questions? Okay, seeing none. Be it resolved that council will receive the fence viewer appointment report as presented, and further that council appoint both Natalie Mitz and Kevin Baker as fence viewers. I was going to say sitters. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to table correspondence information, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demarche. Thank you, Councillor Fleeler. Is there anything that anybody would like to bring forward? Please, yes, go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like us to support the town of Perry Sound, about buying Canadian and removing
Sure,
barriers.
yep. Okay, so that will be pulled out. Okay, is there anything else?
Your worship,
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Fleeler.
thank you. 10.7, I can't see it right now. I gotta flip the screen over, but anyway, I would like to have this brought back. For
10.7, that's the Toronto Waste one?
yeah. I would like to have this brought back for discussion and possibly a closed session. I don't know if we could do that. I'll have to talk to Kelly about it. But I would definitely like this brought back. If we
Okay,
could.
okay, so we'll pull it out and bring it back to the next council meeting then. Is that what you would like to see?
Yeah,
And then I think what we do is we put it up for under items for consideration or discussion. That's where it would go. I don't think we can discuss it in a closed.
yeah, I don't know. I'll have to talk to Kelly to make sure.
Okay,
Okay.
so we'll pull it out and at this point in time, bring it back under items for consideration. And then in the meantime, Councillor Fiedler will reach out to CIO Pender and find out how we deal with that. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, okay, do we do we close this off and then vote on the one that, okay. So, could it be it resolved that corresponding information be received and filed other than, okay, all in favor? Thank you, okay, and then, we're pulling out, what number was that again, Jamie? 10.8, okay. So could I have a mover and a seconder to support the Town of Parry Sound, Ontario, request for support resolution, remove any impediments to municipalities preferring to engage Canadian companies for capital projects and supplies. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demartian. Thank you, Councillor Valley-Cat. Any discussion? All in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, nothing? Okay, could I move in a second for the confirmatory bylaw, please? Thank you, Councillor Palmetier, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Demarche. Be it resolved that confirmatory bylaw number 2025-19 be read at first, second, third, and final time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 25th day of February 2025. All in favor? Thank you. And could I have a move in a seconder to adjourn today's meeting, please? Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Thank you, Councillor Valley-Cat. Be it resolved that council adjourn at 7:58. Thank you. That was a lot of material covered today. Thank you. All in favor?